My name is Alex. I thought my life was boring. Nothing exciting ever happened in our quiet little town. I spent most of my days just wishing for something, anything to break the silence. Little did I know, my wish was about to come true in the worst way possible. It was a Tuesday, I think. Or maybe a Wednesday. The days all blended together back then. I was cleaning out the attic, a place filled with dusty boxes and forgotten memories. My mom had asked me to sort through my grandfather's old things. He passed away years ago, but his stuff remained untouched, like a shrine to a life I barely knew. I was about to give up when my foot caught on something, a floorboard. It was loose. I knelt down. My curiosity suddenly sparked. The attic was always a creepy place. Shadows danced in the corners, and the single dangling light bulb cast long, spooky figures on the walls. I hated it up there. But this loose floorboard was different. It felt like a secret waiting to be discovered. I wiggled it back and forth. It groaned in protest, the old wood complaining after years of silence. With one final tug, it came free. Underneath, nestled in a small, dark hollow, was a book. It wasn't just any book. It was a diary, bound in dark, cracked leather. It felt cold to the touch, almost like it was humming with a strange energy. My heart started to beat a little faster. I pulled the diary from its hiding place. It was heavy in my hands, heavier than it looked. There was no name on the cover. Just a small, tarnished brass lock holding its secrets tight. Who did this belong to? Why was it hidden so carefully? My mind raced with questions. I looked around the attic, suddenly feeling like I was being watched. The shadows seemed deeper, the silence more menacing. Part of me wanted to put the diary back, to pretend I had never found it and go back to my boring, predictable life. But another part, a louder, more insistent part, needed to know what was inside. I had to know. I searched through my grandfather's old toolbox, my hands trembling slightly. I found a small screwdriver that I thought might work on the lock. After a few tense moments of fiddling and twisting, I heard a faint click. The lock sprang open. I took a deep breath, the dusty attic air filling my lungs. The smell of old paper and something else, something I couldn't quite place, wafted up from the pages. I opened the cover. The first page had a name written in elegant, looping cursive. It wasn't my grandfather's name. It was a name I had never seen before, Evelyn, and below the name, a date from 50 years ago. My adventure, my nightmare, was just beginning. I sat on the dusty floor, the single light bulb swinging gently above me, and began to read. The diary belonged to a woman named Evelyn. Her words painted a picture of a life lived right here, in this very house, long before I was born. She wrote about the town, the neighbors, and the quiet streets. At first it seemed normal. It was just an old diary filled with everyday thoughts. She wrote about planting roses in the garden and baking pies in the kitchen. She described the creak of the stairs and the whistle of the wind at night. It was almost peaceful, a glimpse into a simpler time. I felt a strange connection to her, this woman I had never met. But as I turned the pages, the tone of the diary began to change. The happy entries became less frequent. They were replaced by darker, more secretive scribblings. Evelyn wrote about a man she was afraid of. She never used his name. She only called him the Shadow. He was someone everyone in town respected, someone powerful. But in the pages of her diary, he was a monster. He had a secret, a terrible secret he would do anything to protect. My eyes scanned the words faster and faster. My heart pounded against my ribs. Who was this man? What was his dark secret? Evelyn wrote that she had discovered something she wasn't supposed to know. It had to do with the Old Town Bank, and a disappearance that was never solved. A night watchman had vanished without a trace, and a large sum of money went with him. The town gossiped for years, but the case went cold. According to Evelyn, the Shadow was involved. He had silenced the watchman to hide his own crimes. She had found proof, and she was terrified. She wrote about feeling watched, about hearing footsteps outside her window at night. She was trapped in her own home, living in constant fear. The final entries were frantic and barely legible. The handwriting was shaky, the ink smudged as if by tears. He knows, she wrote. He knows I know. I have hidden this diary. If you are reading this, do not trust him. Do not trust the man everyone calls a hero. And then, the diary ended. The last page was blank. There were no more entries. It just stopped. A cold dread washed over me. I felt like I had just read the last words of a ghost. What happened to Evelyn? What happened to the proof she had found? And who was the Shadow? I closed the diary, my hand shaking. Suddenly, the house didn't feel like my home anymore. It felt like a crime scene. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of the leaves outside the window sent a jolt of fear through me. I thought about Evelyn, living here in this same house, terrified for her life. The friendly old walls now seemed to hold dark secrets. The cozy rooms felt cold and unwelcoming. I looked at the family photos on the mantelpiece. My parents, my grandparents, all smiling. It was a lie. Our family history was built on a terrible, hidden secret. I felt like a stranger in my own life, my grandfather. The thought hit me like a physical blow. He was a respected man in town. He had been the president of the old town bank. Everyone called him a hero for how he helped the community after the robbery. They said he saved the bank from ruin. He was the man everyone looked up to. He was the man Evelyn was writing about. The pieces clicked into place with a sickening finality. My kind, gentle grandfather, the man who used to give me candy and tell me stories, was the shadow. He was the monster from Evelyn's diary. My stomach churned, and I felt like I was going to be sick. How could this be true? I tried to deny it, to find some other explanation, but the facts were all there, laid out in Evelyn's desperate handwriting. The timeline matched, his position at the bank matched, the town's reverence for him matched. He had built his reputation, our family's reputation, on a lie, on someone else's suffering, on a crime. I felt a wave of anger, hot and sharp, mixed with a deep, confusing sadness. The man I thought I knew never really existed. He was a character, a mask he wore to hide the darkness underneath. I felt betrayed by a ghost. My whole world had been turned upside down. The memories I cherished were now tainted. Every story he told me, every smile he gave me felt like a deception. Was anything real? I looked at my own reflection in the dusty attic window. My face was pale, my eyes wide with a fear I had never known before. I wasn't just Alex anymore. I was the grandson of the shadow. I was the keeper of a 50-year-old secret. The silence of the attic was no longer empty. It was filled with the unanswered questions and the silent screams of the past, and I was standing right in the middle of it. For a long time, I just sat there clutching the diary to my chest. The world outside the attic window kept moving, but my life had stopped. I had two choices. I could put the diary back under the floorboard. I could lock it away and pretend I never found it. I could go back downstairs and live in the comfortable lie my family had built. No one would ever know. I could forget about Evelyn, forget about the watchman, and forget about the monster who shared my blood. It would be the easy path, the safe path. My life could go back to being boring, and maybe eventually I would forget, but how could I? How could I unread those words? How could I forget the terror in Evelyn's writing? Her story was real, her fear was real, and she had been silenced. My grandfather, the town hero, had made sure of it. If I hid the diary, I would be silencing her too. I would be helping him keep his secret. I would become part of the lie. The thought made my skin crawl. Living with that knowledge, with that quiet guilt, would be its own kind of prison. I couldn't do it. Evelyn had trusted that someone someday would find her words. She trusted them to do the right thing. My fear slowly began to turn into something else. It turned into resolve. This was bigger than me. It was about justice. It was about the truth, no matter how ugly it was. Evelyn deserved to have her story told. The family of the vanished watchman deserved to know what happened. The town deserved to know that their hero was a fraud. My grandfather had twisted their fates for his own gain, and the threads were now in my hands. It was my responsibility to untangle them, to set things right. It was a terrifying thought. The whole town would be turned against my family. My life would never be the same. I stood up, my legs feeling stronger than they had just moments before. I took one last look around the creepy attic, which no longer seemed so scary. It was just a room. The real monsters were not in the shadows on the wall, they were in the secrets people kept. I walked out of the attic, down the stairs, and into the light, the diary held firmly in my hand. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do next. Maybe go to the police, maybe go to the local newspaper. But I knew one thing for sure, I was not going to be silent. My boring life was over. The secrets of the past were now my future, and I was ready to face them.